Welcome to True Echo, where forgotten voices rise and buried truths come to light. Today's story is about a quiet janitor at a Navy SEAL training base, dismissed by everyone, until one recruit noticed a tattoo that no man was supposed to survive. What followed was a chain of revelations that shattered assumptions, exposed hidden history, and proved that some heroes sweep floors, because they're too dangerous to ignore. At the Naval Amphibious Base in San Diego, nobody noticed the janitor. He moved like a ghost, always there, always silent. His name, to those who cared, was Eugene Randall. Most called him Gene, and even that felt like too much attention. He wore the same frayed gray hoodie every day, hood up even when the California sun blazed. He swept, he mopped, he hauled out the trash. And he did it without ever making a sound. Most recruits didn't know him. Some joked about him. Silent Gene, they called him. Hoodie Santa. Others whispered he was on probation, or worse, some court-mandated labor case nobody wanted to talk about. Nobody asked. Nobody cared. Except Tyler Mendez. Tyler wasn't special, at least not to anyone else. Just another recruit clawing his way through Hell Week, bones grinding against sand, muscles screaming through cold surf and punishing runs. But Tyler had an eye for what others missed. And on the third morning of PT, bleary-eyed and half-broken, he saw it. Gene was lifting a trash lid when his hoodie slipped. Just a little. But enough. The tattoo wasn't something you'd get at a corner parlor. A winged skull wrapped in faded rope, cracked like old parchment. A symbol that didn't belong to any current division or branch Tyler knew, but one he remembered from a story that haunted him since childhood. A memory surfaced, his uncle Ramon, a man who once served in naval intelligence and drank memories like poison. Years ago, Ramon had shown him a photo, grainy, black and white. 5 men in dark gear. No insignias. No names. Just one thing stood out, the same tattoo. When Tyler asked about it, Ramon's eyes had gone cold. "You didn't see that," he'd muttered. "These men don't exist. Government erased them after Somalia. Ghosts, kid. Ghosts who were never supposed to come back." Tyler never forgot that photo. And now, staring at Gene, he realized he was looking at one of those ghosts. But ghosts weren't supposed to push mop buckets. Tyler didn't sleep much that night. When he did, he dreamt of sandstorms and men vanishing into smoke. The next morning, he whispered to his bunkmate Theo. "You ever look at the janitor's neck?" Theo stared. "Bro, you need sleep." But Tyler didn't let it go. He watched Gene. The way he moved. Not like a janitor. Like someone trained to assess threats before the door closed. Like someone who'd lived through something no man should survive. He asked around. Quietly. One older instructor, Sergeant Loma, shrugged when Tyler asked about Gene. "Been here longer than me," Loma said. "Why?" "No reason," Tyler lied. He tried to drop it. He really did. But ghosts leave footprints. And Tyler was already following them. Tyler knew the tattoo wasn't just some faded memory, it was a relic from a blacked-out page of American history. He could feel it every time Gene passed by. Every movement, every look, felt measured, deliberate. Like a man still on a mission. By the end of the second week, Tyler wasn't just curious. He was consumed. He wasn't reckless, he still pushed through drills, checked his gear, hit every time marker. But the moment his mind had space to think, it circled back to Gene. That tattoo. That photograph. And the way no one wanted to talk about it. He made the mistake of bringing it up during lunch. Too loud. Too public. "Sergeant," Tyler said, "careful, do you know anything about Gene, the janitor?" "Just curious." Sergeant Pike didn't even look up. "You're curious about a janitor?" "Yeah, I saw a tattoo. Looked military. Maybe special ops. That did it. A few heads turned. One of the recruits laughed. What, you think he's some secret assassin sweeping floors? Pike raised his eyes slowly. Rookie, he said, I don't know what late-night Netflix doc you've been watching, but Gene's just a guy who keeps this place from smelling like your socks. That's it. But my uncle. Did your uncle train you here? No, sir. Then worry less about ghost stories and more about making it through week 3 without your knees giving out. Pike dumped his tray and walked out. The room relaxed. Most forgot the exchange before dessert. But Tyler didn't. That night, in the laundry room, his friend Brandon Kehoe threw a rolled-up sock at him. You really out here starting conspiracy theories about janitors? I'm serious, Tyler muttered. Kehoe shook his head. You think that guy's CIA? Something like that. Or used to be. Kehoe snorted. If he was, he's real committed to this whole mop and bucket cosplay. But Tyler wasn't laughing anymore. He felt the truth under the surface, pressing upward like a splinter under skin. He tried again. Caught Officer Langley outside the motor pool. Sir, off the record. Gene. Has he always worked here? Langley squinted. Gene. Yeah. Maintenance contract. Been around forever. Why? He's got this tattoo. Looks like something I've seen in, well, let's just say it's not a regular design. Langley exhaled and leaned in. You know what bugs me, Mendez? Recruits who forget why they're here. You want to graduate? Then stop poking around. But you know something. Don't you? Langley's eyes hardened. I know how to finish a mission. Digging into a guy like Gene. That's not how you do it. That was the first time someone didn't deny it. Tyler felt it in his chest, confirmation wrapped in silence. The next morning, Tyler skipped the mess hall and loitered near the supply shed. Gene was there, unloading water jugs from the back of a golf cart. The man moved slow but steady, like gravity hadn't quite figured out how to pin him down yet. Tyler took a breath and stepped forward. Gene, he called. Sir, just a second. Gene didn't turn. I saw your tattoo, Tyler said. My uncle, he showed me a photo when I was a kid. You were in it. That stopped him. Gene placed the jug down slowly. Straightened. Turned. Up close, the years showed. Lines carved deep around the eyes. Skin weathered by sun, maybe fire. But it was the look in those eyes, flat, quiet, knowing, that told Tyler he'd crossed a line. You got family in the Navy? Gene asked. My uncle Ramon. Naval Intel. Said your team wasn't supposed to exist. Gene let out a quiet breath. Not a laugh. Just recognition. He showed you that picture. Tyler nodded. Gene stepped in, voice lowered. Whatever your uncle told you, forget it. People died to bury that. But you're here. Alive. Sweeping floors. That can't be where your story ends. Gene's eyes went hard. My story ended a long time ago. What you're looking for doesn't exist. Not on paper. Not in history. And if you're smart, you'll let it stay that way. And then he turned and walked away, cart rattling behind him. Tyler stood frozen. Unsure whether he'd been warned, or spared. But the silence inside him only got louder. For days later, during Liberty Block, most recruits slept or went into town. Tyler took a bus to El Cajon. Found an old bar called the Brass Shield, a dusty joint his uncle used to frequent. The place smelled like sweat, leather, and stories. He sat at the bar. Ordered a root beer. Waited. Then finally asked, anyone here ever know a guy named Eugene Randall? The name hit like a stone in still water. One old man leaned back. Scar across his cheek. Didn't even blink. "Gene," he said. "You sure?" "He's a janitor at our base," Tyler said. "But he's got a tattoo, and a past." The scarred man nodded slowly. "Then I guess you found yourself a ghost, son. But ghosts don't like being remembered." And just like that, the myth started to bleed into fact. The man in the bar didn't give a name. But the way he sat, the way his hand trembled ever so slightly as he picked up his drink, it told Tyler everything he needed to know. This wasn't just an old vet reminiscing. This was a survivor. "You said he was a janitor now?" the man asked, voice low. "Yes, sir. Eugene Randall. But he goes by Gene. No rank. No records. Just a mop." The scarred man looked at him a long moment, then muttered, "Damn. You knew him?" "I knew of him," he said. "Gene wasn't just some operator. He was part of something bigger. Something buried." Tyler leaned in. "My uncle Ramon." "Ramon Mendez," the man finished. "Yeah. I knew him. Smart guy. Asked too many questions. Probably why they forced him out. He was one of the only ones left who remembered Team 9. Tyler's breath hitched. "So it was real. Real as the scars on my back, kid. But it was never supposed to be." "What happened?" The man looked down at the wet ring under his glass. "They were sent into Somalia before the city collapsed. No backup. No comms. Black bag job. We heard whispers that it was about hostages, aid workers, doctors. The government didn't want fingerprints on it. So they sent Team 9. And Gene came back. But not all of them did. 2 killed. 1 left behind. 1 died during exfil. Command blamed them for going off book, even though they were following direct orders from someone who didn't want to be named. The survivors were silenced. Silenced how? 1 vanished. Another's wife and kids deported over visa violations. Gene, he disappeared himself. Off-grid. We thought he was dead." Tyler stared at his hands, knuckles white. "So why come back?" "Some men leave the service. Others just change uniforms. I guess Gene couldn't quit completely." The scarred man stood. Tossed a few crumpled bills on the table. "You found something real, kid. But real comes with consequences. Gene didn't ask to be found. And he sure as hell didn't ask to be remembered. If you keep pulling that thread, you'd better be ready for what unravels." Tyler returned to base with a head full of ghosts. Everything looked the same, barracks, sand trails, instructors yelling. But he wasn't the same. Now he saw Gene for who he truly was. And it crushed him. Not with fear. But with weight. That night, he couldn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, the photo of Gene's old team burning in his mind. 5 men. For now shadows. 1 pushing a mop down forgotten halls. During chow the next morning, it all started to crack. Deshaun Bell, loudmouth, class clown, good at push-ups, bad at reading a room, decided to take a shot. "Hey Gene," he called across the mess hall. "You miss a spot. I can see my ugly face in the table." A few laughs echoed. Gene kept wiping trays. Bell pushed harder. "Come on, man, you were probably Navy once, right? Dropped your rifle and ended up on mop duty." The chuckles faded. Something in the air changed. Gene stood upright. Turned to face Bell. No anger. No words. Just a look. A long, cold stare from a man who had seen too much and lived through it all. Bell fidgeted. "Just messing around, old man. Don't take it personal." Still no response. Tyler stood. "Hey," he said quietly but firmly. "Cut it out." Bell raised an eyebrow. "You got a thing for janitors now, Mendez?" "You don't know who he is," Tyler said. "So maybe shut up before you say the wrong thing to the wrong man." Silence gripped the room. Gene turned and walked away, but before he exited, he glanced at Tyler. Just a flicker of recognition. No smile. No nod. But it was enough. The whispers started. Not from Tyler this time. Other recruits, ones who'd never paid attention before, began watching Gene differently. Less like a background shadow. More like a silent monument to something they didn't understand. Diego Suarez caught Tyler outside the weight room later that day. "That thing you said, about Gene. What did you mean?" Tyler hesitated. "I meant you shouldn't mouth off to people who've seen more than you'll ever understand." "You think he's military?" "I think," Tyler said carefully, "he's more than you or I will ever be." That only made Suarez more curious. And curiosity spreads like fire in a closed camp. By Friday, instructors were watching everyone more closely. Tension crackled in the air. Lieutenant Carver, stern and sharp, with no time for rumors, pulled Tyler aside during drills. "I hear you've been spreading stories." "I didn't spread anything, sir. I answered a question." Carver stepped in, close enough to count his breath. "You're not here to rewrite history. You're here to survive. If you want to make it to graduation, you'll keep your mouth shut." "Yes, sir." But Tyler's got twisted. They knew. They knew Gene's past had surfaced, and they wanted it buried again. That night, Tyler found Gene alone outside the rec yard, cleaning out the cigarette bin. "They know I talked," Tyler said. Gene didn't look up. Just kept sweeping ash into a dustpan. "I think I screwed up," Tyler added. "You did," Gene said. "I didn't think it would move this fast." Gene finally looked up. That's the thing about silence. Break it once, it never sounds the same again. Tyler sat beside him. "So what now?" Gene reached into his pocket and pulled out a photo. Folded twice, faded. He handed it over. Tyler unfolded it carefully. 5 men. Desert fatigues. Faces hard. Gene was in the center. Younger, angrier, alive. "They're all gone," Gene said. "By bullet. By betrayal. Or by time." Tyler looked up. "Why show me?" Gene exhaled. "Because once you carry someone's truth, it stops being just theirs." Then he stood, tossed the dustpan in the bin, and walked off without another word. Tyler stared at the photo long after Gene walked away. 5 men. No names. No medals. No headlines. Just eyes that knew the world would never remember them. But one had survived. One was still here. And now his silence was Tyler's burden, too. The rest of the weekend passed like a slow tremor beneath the surface. The drills were the same. The screaming instructors, the aching muscles, the tactical runs, all unchanged. But the recruits had shifted. Gene wasn't just the janitor anymore. He was something else. Something unspoken. And then, without warning, the earthquake came. Tuesday morning. Overcast skies. No announcements. No sirens. Just a black SUV that rolled into the base like it didn't need permission. Out stepped Commander Elliot Curnow, a man built like an oak tree and just as warm. Rumors flew faster than orders. Curnow was former intelligence, now Navy PR and internal affairs. His job wasn't to train soldiers. It was to clean up messes. And apparently, one had just begun. Within hours, instructors were stiff. Conversations died when you walked into a room. Staff stopped smiling. Even Pike kept his voice lower than usual. By 1600 hours, the entire recruit class was summoned to the quad. Mandatory assembly. No exceptions. Tyler stood in the middle row, heart pounding like a war drum. Curnow stepped onto the platform. No rank introduction. No preamble. "I've heard some interesting stories coming out of this facility," he began. "Stories about janitors. Ghost units. Conspiracies." His eyes scanned the rows of recruits like a hawk searching for mice. "Let me make one thing clear, this is not the place for fiction. This is not a training ground for storytellers. This is the Navy SEAL program. You are here to become warriors, not tabloid writers." No one breathed. "Instructors are here to build you. Not babysit your fantasies. If anyone believes they have something more important to say than their own training, my office is open." He paused. Then added with surgical precision, "I will gladly expedite your exit paperwork." Some recruits glanced at Tyler. Then Curnow made it worse. He turned toward Jean, who stood at the side, pushing his broom quietly. "You," Curnow said flatly. "You keep your head down. You're not part of this story." Jean said nothing. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He just stopped. Then, as if pulled by something deeper than pride, Jean crossed the quad. No mic. No orders. Just a slow, deliberate walk to the center of the assembly. He turned to face the sea of recruits. And spoke. "I never asked to be noticed," he said, voice calm but clear. "Never needed a thank you. Never needed a plaque." He looked across the young faces. "But don't stand here pretending you understand sacrifice if you can't recognize the people who bled before you did." You could have heard a pin drop. Jean continued, eyes cutting through the fog. "Some of us were sent to do things this country wasn't ready to admit needed doing. And when it was over, they buried us. Some disappeared. Some were forced to. I stayed. Not for recognition, but to see if anyone still knew what respect meant." Then he turned to Curnow. "Truth doesn't stop being true just because it's inconvenient." And with that, he walked away. No applause. No salute. Just silence. That night, the dorms were still. Even the loudest guys, Belle, Theo, Diego, sat quiet in their bunks. Nobody asked Tyler anything. Nobody teased him. The weight in the air was too real. Theo broke the silence first. "You think it's all true?" Brandon didn't look up from his cot. "I think Tyler ain't dumb enough to start a fire unless he knows it's real." Diego added, "He doesn't move like a janitor. He moves like someone who's been in rooms the rest of us will never survive." Tyler didn't say a word. He just listened. Because now, the story wasn't just his to tell. It belonged to every man in that room. And Jean's silence had become their responsibility. The next day during tactical drills, Lieutenant Carver pulled Tyler aside again. "This your idea of discipline?" he growled. "Stirring up recruits with war stories?" "I didn't stir anyone, sir. I answered a question. You're not here to rewrite history." "I'm not. Just refusing to pretend it never existed." Carver leaned in, inches from Tyler's face. "You'll be gone before week 6 if you keep this up." Tyler didn't respond. But his fists clenched at his sides. Later that night, he found Jean again, alone near the tool sheds. "I think I made it worse," Tyler admitted. Jean didn't look up. "That's what happens when you rip bandages off old wounds. They're going to force you out." Jean scoffed. "They've been trying to get rid of me since the day I came back." "Then why stay?" Jean looked up, his eyes tired but focused. "Because I wanted to see if even one of you would care enough to look deeper." Tyler sat beside him. "I did. I know. Then Jean handed him something. A photo. Folded. Old. Same 5 men. Same desert backdrop. This is who I was. And what they paid. Tyler looked at it, jaw tight. Why give this to me? Because once you carry someone's truth, it's not just theirs anymore. Tyler stared at the faces. Every man in that photo had been buried by history. But one was still sweeping their memory into clean hallways. Tyler kept the photo tucked inside the lining of his field manual, hidden between laminated pages of battlefield protocols and SEAL ethos bullet points. It didn't belong there, not officially. But somehow, it felt more relevant than anything else in the book. By the end of that week, Jean's presence had changed from background noise to something unspoken and sharp. The recruits didn't salute him. But they stopped mocking him. Some nodded. Some cleared a path when he passed. Not out of fear, but recognition. But not everyone had changed. And the Navy's top brass was watching. On Saturday afternoon, while most of the recruits collapsed into short-lived naps or wrote letters back home, Tyler found himself pacing near the utility corridor again. He wasn't looking for Jean this time. But Jean found him anyway. You still here? Jean asked, voice dry. I've been thinking, Tyler said. Dangerous hobby. Tyler smiled, then grew serious. What you did, what they did to your team, it should be part of the training. We're told about sacrifice. But we're not told what happens when the system throws you away after it. Jean leaned against the wall, crossed his arms. You think you're the first to notice? Tyler shook his head. I think I might be the first dumb enough to ask about it out loud. Jean gave a rare, faint smirk. You might be right. They stood in silence for a while. Then Tyler asked, you ever think about telling the story? On the record? Books, interviews. To who? Jean cut in. The media. They'd twist it. Congress. They'd bury it deeper. Navy. They've already deleted the file. I don't mean for them, Tyler said quietly. I mean for us. Jean's gaze shifted. For the next generation. For the next kid who sees a mop and forgets to ask what the man holding it used to carry. Jean looked away. Then, after a pause, said, write it down. But not as a tribute. Tyler blinked. Then what? As a warning. Sunday brought an eerie calm. But by Monday morning, the calm shattered with 3 sharp words. Random barracks inspection. Tyler's gut dropped. This wasn't random. This was a message. Colonel walked through with 2 officers in tow, checking lockers, flipping mattresses, examining folded uniforms like they were hunting for contraband. But it wasn't about gear. It was about fear. When they reached Tyler's bed, they stopped longer than necessary. One of the officers pulled out his field manual, flipped through it, and paused. The photo. They stared at it, unspeaking. Then they returned it, slowly, like it might burn their fingers. Colonel didn't say a word. Just looked at Tyler with a cold, unreadable stare. And moved on. That night, Tyler skipped mess and wandered outside to the old wreck yard where broken gear was tossed until deemed salvageable. He found Jean there, fitting a new wheel to a utility cart. They found the photo, Tyler said. Jean didn't look up. Did they say anything? No. Then they're not ready to deal with what it means. Tyler crouched beside him. You ever think the truth might still matter? Jean wiped grease from his fingers. The truth is only dangerous when someone's ready to believe it. Until then, it's just noise. Tyler hesitated. So why keep showing up? Jean looked over at the crumbling horizon, where the sun dipped into steel-gray skies. Because sometimes one person listening is enough. He reached into his toolbox, pulled out a worn patch. Black fabric. Red edge. A skull with wings and rope, same as the tattoo. What's this? Tyler asked. Only 5 of them were ever made. Tyler swallowed. Is this for me? No. It's for you to hold until you know who needs it next. He placed it in Tyler's hand, then stood and wheeled the cart away. By Wednesday, everything boiled. A new directive was posted on the message board. All civilian maintenance staff subject to rescreening and reassignment. Effective immediately. Tyler's heart dropped. He found Jean near the admin building, unscrewing a busted light fixture. The news was already on his face. They're pushing you out, Tyler said. Jean didn't argue. Was always a matter of time. You're just going to let them? Jean paused. I didn't come here to fight anymore. But you stayed. I stayed long enough. Tyler's throat tightened. Will I see you again? Jean didn't answer at first. Then he turned. You don't need to. You already did. And then he handed Tyler one last thing, a folded, yellowed sheet of paper. His name. Eugene Randall. No rank. No serial. Just a date. And 5 words scrawled beneath it. We buried the rest ourselves. Tyler looked up. But Jean was already walking away, not toward the dorms. Toward the gate. No salutes. No handshakes. No uniform to retire. Just the quiet march of a man whose war had lasted too long. Jean didn't show up the next morning. His cart was gone. Locker cleaned out. No trace in the maintenance shed, not even a coffee cup. It was like he'd been airlifted out of the base, not fired, not retired, erased. Tyler stood outside the supply room in full gear, gripping the black patch Jean had handed him. Around him, the base moved on like nothing had happened. No announcements. No formal goodbye. Just silence. That was how they wanted it. And yet, the silence couldn't hold. Not anymore. Because by then, Jean's absence was louder than any speech. At chow that day, someone left an empty chair next to Tyler with a single folded rag on the table, gray, worn, just like Jean's hoodie. No one admitted who put it there. But nobody moved it either. Theo Chen finally broke the quiet. He's gone, huh? Tyler nodded. Because of us? No, Tyler replied. Because of them. Diego Suarez leaned in. What do we do now? Tyler pulled out the patch from his pocket and laid it on the table. The winged skull stared up at them, ink faded, but impossible to ignore. Now, Tyler said slowly, we remember. We don't let the truth disappear again. That evening, he gathered a handful of the guys in the dorm after lights out, the ones he trusted most. No loud speeches. Just the story. Jean. Team 9. Somalia. The burn orders. The silent return. Some didn't believe it. A few said it sounded like a movie script. But then Tyler passed the patch around. Let them feel it. And the room changed. Over the next week, word spread. Not wildly, not gossip. Reverence. They didn't treat it like scandal. They treated it like scripture. They started calling Jean something new. Not the janitor. Not Silent Jean. They started calling him the last ghost. A name that never showed up in reports, never echoed in instructor briefings, but passed from bunk to bunk like a vow. One day, Belle, who had once mocked Jean loudly, walked up to Tyler in the gear room. I was wrong, he said simply. About him. About you. Tyler nodded. Nothing else needed to be said. Then came the final test, the crucible run. The last beast before graduation. A brutal, overnight gauntlet that pushed every mental, physical, and emotional limit. Mountains. Ocean. Mud. Sleep deprivation. The instructors said they'd be alone. That no one would be watching. But as Tyler crested the last hill before the final checkpoint, he saw someone standing just at the tree line. Black hoodie. Arms folded. Jean. No cart. No mop. Just presence. Their eyes met. Tyler didn't wave. Didn't speak. He just nodded. Jean nodded back. And then disappeared into the trees like a shadow. Graduation arrived 2 days later. Families flooded the base. Flags flew. Medals gleamed. Of the 78 recruits who began, only 29 made it through. Tyler stood with his brothers in arms, chest proud, eyes forward. But even as his mother hugged him, even as instructors gave speeches about valor and legacy, Tyler's mind wasn't on the present. It was on the one man who wasn't allowed to stand there with them. After the ceremony, Tyler slipped away. Walked the base's outer perimeter until he reached the fence that bordered the hills. He stood there, looking toward the horizon, wind at his back. Then, from his chest pocket, he pulled out the folded yellowed paper Jean had given him. And beneath it, he tucked the photo. The one of the 5 men. He didn't bury it. He wedged it in the fence post, visible only to someone who knew to look. It wasn't a monument. But it was enough. A place. A story. A truth. Waiting for the next recruit who asked the right question. 3 months after graduation, Tyler Mendez was deployed for the first time. It wasn't glamorous, logistic security detail at a forward operating base, but it was real. Boots in the dirt. Purpose in the silence. He didn't carry a mop. He carried a rifle now. But in his chest pocket, sealed in a plastic sleeve, was Jean's patch. And in his head, a promise. Not to forget. Not to let the next guy forget. One night, under a dim orange sky in the Afghan highlands, Tyler sat with a new wave of boots, younger, cockier, unscarred. One of them, blonde, maybe 19, asked if being a SEAL was all just fire and flexing. Tyler didn't say much. But before the fire died, he told them a story. Not about medals. Not about glory. About a man with a mop. And the tattoo no one was supposed to see. Back in San Diego, in a nondescript diner at the edge of National City, a man in a black hoodie sipped coffee in the corner booth. He didn't speak. He watched. And when the server smiled and asked if he'd been in the service, he replied simply. Used to sweep floors. Some legends don't wear medals. Some heroes never stand on podiums. They don't ask to be remembered. But when someone finally looks closely, when someone dares to ask, their truth doesn't just change one person. It echoes. Because legacy isn't what you build in public. It's what survives in silence. If this story made you stop, made you see someone differently, share it. Let someone else know that not all heroes shout. Some whisper. And some, just sweep the floor until someone finally listens. Subscribe to True Echo for more stories that don't just entertain, but remind us what truly matters.